Okay. Thank you, Jorge, and your entire team for creating this wonderful summer summit entitled Health Talks with Hadassah Experts. Hadassah, the Women's Zionist Organization of America, is delighted and honored to co-host with Hadassah International on this exciting Zoom presentation on transformation and innovation in cancer research and treatment. It is my great pleasure to warmly welcome Professor Aron Popovtzer, a leader in the field of oncology and the new head of the Sharett Institute of Oncology. Professor Popovtzer has returned home to Israel, newly joining forces at Hadassah. He is a graduate of the Hadassah Hebrew University School of Medicine and brings a wealth of experience, both in his years specializing in head and neck cancer at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor and in Beth Israel Medical Center in New York, where he gained experience in treating cancer by inserting radioactive implants directly into cancerous tissue. During the last 5 years, he served as deputy head of the Oncology Institute at the Rabin Medical Center. Professor Popovtzer, welcome home. Hadassah International and Hadassah, the Women's Zionist Organization of America, greatly appreciate you returning home to help us fulfill an exciting vision together of putting Hadassah at the forefront of both treatment and research. I would also like to offer warm greetings to the two other internationally recognized powerhouses in the field of cancer innovation. Welcome Professor Michal Lotem, the head of the Center for Melanoma and Cancer Immunotherapy and the head of HMO's Cancer Research Center. And welcome to Professor Polina Stepensky, head of the Department of Bone Marrow Transplantation and Cancer Immunotherapy. When we talk about living alongside the virus, one of the most important, if not the most important areas we must address is oncology. At Hadassah and Hadassah's supporters, we can all rest assured that with these brilliant and wonderful physicians at HMO, everything is being done to further the world's understanding about cancer treatment and cures. It is my privilege to welcome you all to this special event today, and I now turn it over to Jorge.
Thank you, Rhoda. It's really a pleasure for us at Hadassah International to co-host this event with WCOA, Hadassah, the Women's Zionist Organization of America. We have organized a summer summit with a lot of webinars, but I think this is a very special event because I think it marks the fact that there is life beyond COVID-19, and there is also healthcare beyond COVID-19, and there is also cure beyond COVID, and there is also research that is important for all of us, regardless or beyond the virus that is now for a while making us live the life we are living. And I think that we are marking that with an incredible panel of speakers that will help us understand where we are heading in terms of cure, solutions, better treatments for cancer. I want to invite each one of our speakers to make an opening statement and relate to the future. I think we all know where we are today. There are many things you will share about the things you are doing today, heading into the future. But I want you to share with us, when you think about a few years down the road and you look at the role of Hadassah in the field of cancer treatment and research, what is that image that you see? What is that you envision the role of Hadassah in a few years from now? Please. Aron? We can't hear you. Just you were on mute. So if you can unmute yourself again. And
yes.
Now we hear you.
Okay. So I would like to say that I would like to thank you for the warm welcome. And Nashot Hadassah have a great reputation, but I wasn't aware how strong you are and how committed you are, that in the middle of this coronavirus time that you're all here to be part of this. It's very touching and it's very strong at proving its effect. When we look at that, now we go back to our main focus, which is the cancer. when we look at where we're heading, I think that our main focus now in cancer is personalized treatment. The personalized treatment has its expression in what we're doing in far as treatment, where today, when we're looking for medical treatments for cancer, we're looking for personalized medicine, and Hadassah is going to be the first hospital in Israel and one of the first hospitals in the world that will have the opportunity to do genomic sequencing and tailor treatment for all its patients. This is a unique program that we are going to be started soon. It will be unique for Hadassah, and we will take together the brilliant minds we have in our oncology center, together with outsources and with companies that work together, and hopefully with drug companies that will support us to give treatments based on the personalized necessities of the patients. The same thing we're working now with radiation. We have purchased, and we're going to be the first place in Israel, maybe the first place in Europe to have a new adaptive radiation machine, which will give us the capabilities to change treatments according to changes which occur during this radiation. This is fascinating. This is just around the corner. Hopefully, we will get started with this in October. Other than that, when we look at our future, we are proud that we are opening up a research center that you're going to be hearing from soon, which is going to be headed by Professor Lotem, which will hopefully and already is looking for unique understandings of the biology of the cancer, the immunology of the cancers, which could lead potentially for more unique and innovative treatments that can be given in Hadassah. And actually already in Hadassah, as you see right next to me in the Zoom at least, Professor Stepensky is leading many of these unique treatments already and not only in the science, but also in real life. And I think that all these opportunities that we are giving that will be the unique in treatments, unique in thought, unique in medical oncology and radiation oncologies, definitely promises Hadassah a promising future. And we look forward for all your collaboration in this future. Thank you.
Thank you, Aron. Michal. Prof. Michal Lotem.
Yeah, I'm just making sure that I'm unmuted, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. So good evening, everybody, or good morning. And I'm so excited because, well, I welcome Mr. Roberto Bialewski, whom every day I think we greet when we use our fantastic new lab that was actually built thanks to Roberto. And my new MD, PhD students are so happy, hi Ethel, are so happy to use the lab, which is just a cutting edge lab, and I'm very grateful, and for all supporters who found time to hear us. So, Jorge, as you mentioned, I think Professor Rothstein gave me a huge challenge to start a cancer research center in Sharett Institute, and I'm very lucky that Professor Popovtzer, who took the task and challenge to lead Sharett Institute, is so supportive of the idea of medicine that is rich in science. And I think this is where medicine is heading. It will not be just enough to give a nice description and to make diagnosis, because treatment is getting sophisticated, complicated, and very much personalized. But when we say personalized, we figure out our choices based on a lot of complicated data, including the molecular basis of cancer. And so what I see in the future is that we will have lots of physicians, researchers, and a main pillar for our Cancer Research Institute would be to nourish and to encourage our youngest to become physician researchers. As you know, we have in Hadassah big databases on which we can build a lot of insights, and we can identify trends, we can identify disease behavior, we can try to develop markers by whom we can predict who will respond to treatment, who will get complications, who should not receive the treatment, even if the treatment is registered for their disease. And so data is power. And to use data is an Israeli talent, I think, that is being developed on many branches of our society. The academia, and I love showing the way Hadassah is just merged to the Faculty of Medicine, and it is a matter of one step to move from a university, academia, to a hospital where we see the patients and we know what the patients need and we know the questions to ask, and it is such a synergy that not many cancer centers can enjoy this. And of course, we already developed our immunotherapy capacities, and immunotherapy is a main avenue for cancer treatment. And together with my colleague, Professor Polina Stepensky, and she will probably tell you more about that, we are advancing a cutting-edge genetic engineering capabilities to treat our patients. And so I think we are so privileged on being part on Hadassah on the one hand, and on having you, all of you, and your support on the other end.
Thank you,
So
Michal.
thank you, Prof.
Thank you for your opening remarks. Professor Polina Stepensky. Polina, please.
Hi, thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this exciting event, and thank you for your warm words. And I want to present a little bit what was done in our department during the last few years. When I started at Hadassah 25 years ago and I was a medical student, we learned a lot about chemotherapy and radiotherapy. Okay, but I graduated medical school and we started to learn something else, something about biological therapy, about checkpoint inhibitors, about the use of immunology to treat our patients, about to use the medicines that can change something with the cells of the patient, that these cells could attack the cancer cells. And during the last few years, it was new advances, very significant advances. And I have to note that the first description of these advances was done in Israel 20 years ago, maybe 20, 25 years ago, by Professor Zelig Eshar in Weizmann Institute of Science. And after it, it was the development during all these years. And when I was appointed to head bone marrow transplantation department 3 years ago, it was the oldest and the biggest department in Israel. It was the first department which was established in 1981. And from this time till now, in our department was performed more than 4,000 transplants. But transplants we know how to do. It was new, it was interesting, it was very fascinating, but it was done, the history also is not too long, but the first transplant was done like 50 years ago. So we have already some experience. But when I started 3 years ago, Professor Rothstein told me, you have to find something new and to bring it to our field. And we start to think about CAR T cells. What does it mean, CAR T cells? We can change the cells of the patients to modify them genetically, and these cells could attack the cancer cells. We have few examples, and we started to do it already in our clinical practice for the patients with lymphoma and the patients with relapsed acute leukemia. Even we started only this year, I checked today, we did already 27 patients. So 27 patients we treated already with this new cutting edge therapy at our department. And I have to note that at least 60 or 70% from them are already in remission. So even during this difficult time of Corona, we had few patients and we convinced them to come and to get this treatment. And now I spoke with our patients and we have the first evidence that she was cured by this cutting edge therapy. And also we are developing now with Professor Lotem, and as she noted, this therapy, which will be totally, absolutely Israeli, you know, like blue and white. So it will be our own homemade CAR T cells for another type of hematological malignancy, multiple myeloma. And we really hope that with all these advancements and with your kind help, we'll be able to start clinical trial till the end of this year.
Thank you, Polina. You know, I think it's fascinating to listen to each one of you, but actually to all of you together, you know, because, you know, we always said it takes a village. And I think, you know, it'll take a village to find a cure for cancer. And I think if there will be a village where we all want to see that cure for cancer or for all different types of cancer coming from, is the village of Jerusalem. And is that little village of Hadassah in Jerusalem. And I think that when I listen to each one of you, you know, if this was an academic discussion and there was not that many people like us, those who are not experts in medicine, but we lovers of Hadassah and the work that you do, you know, we probably would see a discussion of who has the right technique and who has the right approach to looking at the cells and who has the right approach to looking at immunotherapy. And, you know, mine is better. And I think what we see here is a sum of efforts that can realize the vision that we all have of positioning Hadassah for what Hadassah can be and is already be because of the work that you do, which is one of the top centers in research for cancer and finding solutions. And I want to go a bit deeper with each one of you on these aspects of what is the edge of the work that each one of you is doing. And please, I remind all the participants in this session that you can put your questions in the chat, and we will try to ask these questions to our speakers. Professor Popovtzer, I think, you know, when in conversations we had behind the scenes, ahead of this meeting, you know, one of the things I found fascinating when you speak about the new technology that you are bringing together with your new leadership to Hadassah, you speaking about the genomic sequencing and you speak about new technologies for radiation, but you also spoke about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and how the technology that we're bringing not only gives a solution, but also learns about each one of the patients. And this is sounds so much like science fiction and goes so much into personal medicine that I want you to talk a little bit more about that so that we can all understand what kind of personalized new technologies will be taking care of us in a few years. You are on. You are unmuted.
Hi, everybody. So it's an interesting question. And I think that when we're talking about what we call AI, artificial intelligence, it's involved in everything we do today. So the big question is, can the computer switch the human being or not? And our feeling is that we can learn a lot from the computer about everything we do. So for example, in cancer, in imaging, we know that many of the imaging is solved by people, that the radiologists who look at the imaging. But today we are trying, and actually in Hadassah itself, we're working on developing new types of imaging in which we will use our prior knowledge in order to understand better from what we get from the imaging, in order to define better if the cancer is responding or not responding to treatment, and accordingly to plan our next treatment. And sometimes, like for example, in radiation, we give radiation, and it's important to know that some of the tumors respond very well to radiation, and some of them don't respond very well. And from one hand, we would like to sometimes give higher dose of radiation to those who do not respond, and on the other hand, de-escalate the dose for those who respond. And actually today, we are taking our knowledge that we have and our intelligence we have in order to define what are changes that occur during treatment. And accordingly, we are planning first to boost, to add on treatments, to lower doses for treatment, to shrink the treatment to the areas that we need to define, which need higher treatments, and also to support the treatments by different types of the sensitization treatments. For example, instead of giving our standard cisplatin, which is the regular chemotherapy we give to all patients who need chemotherapy with radiation, we are capable potentially of adding on specific biological treatments, immunotherapy treatments, and this is all based hopefully on the AI that we'll receive from what's happening during this treatment to the patients. This will be based on what we collect, the databases that we are creating there. We're creating a unique database for all patients who are treated in Hadassah and who were treated before in Hadassah. And we will have all the data regarding how their patients respond or did not respond, how they respond to specific treatments, how are the response related to specific changes which occur in their genomics or in their proteins, whatever what could happen, and accordingly we can tailor our treatment in order to treat better patients and potentially not only improve their survival but also lower their toxicity. When we talk today about cancer treatment, there are two main focuses. Obviously, one of the focuses obviously is to improve the survival. We want people to live longer, but it's important to state today that we don't only want to prolong their lives, we want them to live better. We want the quality of lives to be better, and in many ways, in some of the situations, the quality of life is more important even for the patients, and that's another thing that we have to understand. We have to know what our patients want. We have to understand what their main goal is in treatment, and accordingly suit our treatments and adapt ourselves to what they need. Thank you, Jorge.
Thank you. I think, you mentioned, you talk a lot about data and, how that will help each patient, but at the same time, the volume of data we have and being a hospital that provides public health and serves the entire population of Jerusalem and a big population of Israel and people coming from abroad, that gives us a big volume. Michal, to you, you spoke before about, you said something very interesting, data is power. And what's the power that this data is giving us in terms of the research that your new cancer research center at Hadassah will be able to do?
So I feel very emotional. It's difficult for me this moment to switch to data because I see my very, very beloved friend, Mr. Stuart Greenberg, and so I must say hello. And what beauty about medicine is that on one hand it can be extremely intellectual, and we have artificial intelligence and data mining. On the other hand, it is so emotional because you experience the disease as something very personal, and you get to know people and you get to see how people cope with their disease. And what I want to say is that I've learned a lot about bravery, courage, conviction, persistence, and my teacher is right here. And I don't want to embarrass him, but all of this I owe to Mr. Stuart Greenberg. So it's just my opportunity to mention that, in order to realize the potential of what you can do with your medical knowledge and your scientific appetite, it all is being pushed and encouraged and augmented by people who inspire you. So just let me mention inspiration, and then I'll go back to big data. A big challenge for us is to do things in real time, to know what's happening real time, right now. We want to know what is the outcomes of treatment, not retrospectively, not to sit now and look what has happened 10 years back, but to see what's happening, how are the patients responding, who gets complicated. And to do that, a hospital with a huge silo of electronic files is and one of the reasons why Hadassah is doing this, I think, in a unique and very potent way, is because we are never rich enough to buy a software that somebody else did. We need to develop our own, and I think it's a theme that follows a lot of what we do. we need to develop our own skills. And this is fantastic. This is what Polina is doing for the myeloma treatment. She's developing the treatment from scratch. So nobody will know how to establish new treatments in these directions, as Professor Stepensky will know.
That's a good bridge into Professor Stepensky. So I think, you know, what Michal was saying is that what you are doing right now is something that is done in very few places, or do we understand well, and it's basically saying that it's done only at Hadassah and created at Hadassah?
You know, we are not the first who started this unique therapy for the patients, you know, but I don't know about any centers except a few centers, maybe 2 or 3 centers in US, and these centers were able to develop this treatment. But, you know, this treatment is unique, and it was developed in Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, in NIH, and in Seattle, but not more. And I think we will be the first center abroad from US, you know, not in US, that will develop this treatment. And I'm very thankful to Michal, because, you know, we are working together very, very close, and it is a great opportunity and pleasure and honor to work with her. And I think together we could do it, because, you know, it is very difficult to develop something from zero. And Michal is absolutely right. And, you know, also the conditions now are not so easy. And with this pandemic of coronavirus, it's not simple, but we are continuing to doing our work. We already finished our mouse experiments. We finished our experiments on cell lines, and we applied with our submission to our Ministry of Health. They already gave us few notes. We are going now to answer to these notes and to these questions. And I really hope that till end of this year, we'll be the first country that is not US, which will be able to provide this treatment to our patients. And we'll be the first hospital in Israel, which will develop this treatment from the beginning, from zero.
That's, I think it's fascinating to see how this technique or this solution is something that we are pioneering, at least in the rest of the world, outside of the 2 or 3 main centers in the US at this point. One of the things I want to ask you, to the 3 of you or any of you who want to answer, is that, you know, unfortunately, cancer is a disease that I doubt there is anybody who doesn't have a relative or a friend or a relative of a friend who has suffered, who has died, or who is suffering right now from this terrible disease. And one of the things I learned over the years is that cancer is a family of diseases. It's not actually just one or subcategories of one disease. I don't know how scientifically you would define that. And there are different treatments for different type of cancer. Some things are common, some things are general. And, you know, in terms of prediction, if you have to look at the future and say, you know, these are the type of cancers that in the next 5 to 10 years, we might find very effective solutions that will not only prolong life, but a life with, as Professor Popovtzer said, it's a high quality of life time. And these are diseases, these are type of cancer that it will take longer, 5 to 10 years, because they are very, very challenging. What is that kind of scale of prediction that I think is very relevant for everybody thinking about a type of cancers that are prevalent in the family or that people that we know might have? I don't know who wants to pick that. Aron, Michal. Unmute. One more. Try again.
So
Now
I think,
you're
am I mute? Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so when we talk about cancer in general, so there are some diseases in which we have had a lot of progress in the last few years, like the specific cancer in which Professor Lotem expert in melanoma, the new immunotherapy era, which started or probably 6-7 years ago, has changed the the outcome. The same thing we see with lung cancer, which usually is detected very late and is metastatic disease, and patients used to live for a year or so. Now many of them live for, even if they're metastatic, they live much longer. They live for 5 years, which is amazing. It has changed. They're not cured, but they'll live for 5 years. Other disease like colon metastatic disease has also leaped from living several years to many years. I think that still in general, it's hard to say that we cure metastatic disease. Most of them, what we do today is we prolong life, and we are improving the quality of life while we prolong life. In many other diseases, like in my specific disease, which I expert in head and neck cancer, the overall survival has not changed, unfortunately, from the 1980s to the 2020. They're around 60% survival, which is good, but it's not amazing if you think of those who die. And today, potentially, maybe through to what's happening in the imaging, what's happening in the radiation, we will see a difference, and the immunotherapy combined with the new advantage of the radiation, hopefully will make a difference, and we will see people that were not potentially survivals several years ago, and today are survivals. In general, I think, as mentioned earlier by Michal, what we see today is that we're able to detect the subtype of patients, and in each type of disease, we learned that the cancer is not one disease, but it's a basket of diseases with different genomic changes. We are capable of curing patients from each type of disease, which have not been curable in the past. If I take example, I treat salivary gland cancers, and I have several patients who were heavily metastatic, and today, due to these unique opportunities, are living now for over 8 or 10 years, and something which we could not dream about many years ago. So I think that if you want to be interested in what's happening in cancer, and you have to be involved in treatment of cancer, you have to understand that just like cancer has diversity of diseases, it's also a diversity of treatment, and the understanding that you'll have to suit and tailor each treatment per each disease is what's going to make the difference in the future. And we are seeing many leaps, and hopefully we'll see more of them. Thank you.
Jorge, if I may.
Of course.
Being an immunologist means that you can be very optimistic, and I want to add an optimistic angle to the bigger picture of cancer and to the long-term prospects of this disease. And you know, the beginning of immunotherapy started with vaccination that was done for infectious disease, and we know that for many infectious diseases, we manage actually to generate protective immunity in the individual so that the person will never contract the disease again. And this is what we are so much in need right now for COVID-19. And that aspect of our immune system, the immune memory and the protective memory, is something that today we start realizing that we can do for cancer. And, you know, like in many other fields of drug development, there are not just one good drug, two good drugs, there are many, many. And the more people will work on these fields, the more we will be able to discover. And in particular here in Hadassah, we are dealing with discovery of new control points to enhance the immune system. And when you feel the potential from the point of view, not just the person who gives the drug, but from the point of view of the person who can see how easily you can manipulate the immune system and make it do what you want to do, you have the conviction that it is an obligation, it is a command to keep working on these fields, not let the pharma company control the field completely, because they have their own priorities and interests, and development, although you may think is a top priority for them, not necessarily, because they cannot contain all that is on their plates. And so my gut feeling is that we haven't seen yet not a small proportion of what immunotherapy will be able to do, and we need to keep pursuing.
Thank you, Michal. Polina, do you want to refer to this too?
Okay, so, and something very important that I can only add to what Aron and Michal told before me. Aron spoke about quality of life, and Michal spoke about immunotherapy, and I think it is going together because it is really important. You know, I have now the patients before the CAR-T therapy that we develop now, we could transplant them, but you know, after transplantation, many patients don't have a good quality of life, especially if these are not children and people who are more than 60, 70 years old. So sometimes we are even unable to offer them the transplantation. And now we have the patients who are 65, 75, 80 years old. We gave them CAR-T therapy, and now they are without cancer and with good quality of life. So I'm absolutely sure that we have to pursue and to continue to develop it, because you know it can serve the many patients during our career, and I suppose also after our career. So I'm absolutely sure that we still don't know much more than we know about the immunotherapy, and it is the next in the next decades. I think all field of oncology will be very devoted to this field.
So I think that, you know, what we are saying, and I want just to let you make a couple of more comments about this. What you are saying in a way is that from one treatment for all system, we are going into something, and basically, as Michal was saying, with a lot of drugs developed by the pharma companies for the solutions that is one drug for all, we are moving more into a not just into a personalized type of treatment, but also into something that is homemade, hospital-based structure that can provide, through the solutions of the bodies of the same patients or other human beings, provide solutions for the treatment in the future. Which I think it's not just innovation, and I'm happy that we call this event Transformation and Innovation. It looks like something that is very transformative to the entire approach to dealing with disease in general, in particular with such a disease like cancer. Isn't that right?
Okay, I just had a problem to unmute myself. You know, I want to say something about research in hospitals. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, so I want to emphasize what is unique about research in hospitals, which, by the way, is very difficult, and I'm pretty sure that Professor Popovtzer, who is struggling to do his share of development of new techniques for radiotherapy, and Professor Stepensky, who spends days and nights writing protocols, fighting regulation and looking for resources because they are all needed. The temptation to just see your patients is very high because it's very satisfying, but the drive to be on the edge of development of innovation is very high because you know, we are not limited, we are not restricted by some of the restrictions that the industry is obliged to, and I think that it should be a partnership to help hospitals do research. If you look, you know, I spent during this same summer, I spent 3 months at a research institute called the Broad Institute. The Broad Institute is really the leading institute today in molecular, let's call it molecular medicine, single cell techniques and platforms. And there's a net in the Boston area between the medical centers, and each medical center, part of their pride is their cancer research divisions. And none of them thinks that the obligation of a hospital is just to provide treatment. On the contrary, the treatment is the basis on which you should be the one to initiate the search for innovation. So it's very important for me to make the point, because when we think about hospitals, we think about patient care. And it's a lot about that, and it is more.
Thank you, Michal. Aron, yes, I see you want to comment on that. One sec, you were on mute. One sec.
So it's as you know, I'm sure it's the same situation all over the world, but in Israel, since the manpower is a little low, it's very easy and very tempting just to get used to working on our routine. And that's what many doctors do all over Israel. In Hadassah, we are unique in the fact that we are spending, and not only Michal and Polina, but all the other doctors of the department, which are very unique in the fact they are trying to think of innovative ways to solve problems, and not only to treat patients, which is great and which is very important. I would like to bring an example of one of my young residents that came to me a few days ago and said to me, "Hey, Aron, why do patients, there's something unique today that is very common in cancer, that patients who have one metastatic disease and not many metastases, we treat them as what we call single metastatic disease. And we give them a chance not for treating like palliative treatment as if they're totally metastatic, but as if they have one met and the rest of the disease is local and we can cure them." So she asked me a few days ago, "Aron, why is it like this? I just saw 2 patients who have been cured and lived over 2 years." And I said, "You know what, read something and we'll go and meet somebody from the university and we'll see what we can do." So she read some papers, and today we met with Professor Pekarsky. This was just several days ago, and we came up with some idea in which we're going to research this. We're going to be checking into the RNA of these patients. We're going to compare them to other patients who had different RNA and who did not and were not cured. We're going to be checking this on colon cancer. We're going to be checking this on lung cancer. And this way, potentially, we'll be able to predict which patients are actually single metastatic disease and potentially can be cured, and in which patients, even if we treat them locally and we do big surgery and radiation, at the end they'll have metastatic disease. And that is something that's unique for Hadassah, that people are capable of thinking and looking for out of the box and not only the routine treatment. And the second, as mentioned earlier by Michal, but we do have the collaboration that will help us to succeed and make us unique and make us lead in the future. I would like to shift gears a little to another small issue. We're talking about all the science behind what's happening in medicine and oncology. Another important thing that we are focusing on Hadassah, and specifically now we're working on this even more, is in the well-being of the patients. We are working on improving the capabilities of having more psychologists, or having social workers, having the patient capability to be exposed not only to medicine, but to other things he needs. And obviously, we're trying to improve our physical situation in order to have the patient have a better experiment and a better experience when he comes into the hospital. And that is also very important. We say in Hebrew, refuat nefesh, refuat guf, that you need the patient to be in a good spirit, in a good mood, in order to be cured. And obviously, what we're talking about in science is very important. But today we know that this is part of the curing the patient, and we look forward for the collaboration and also in this field. Thank you.
I think, it's thanks to the generosity of many of the people who are in this webinar today, and many others who have supported Hadassah's research in cancer and in many other things. This is what has given our researchers the freedom to dream and go for their dreams in finding solutions and cure, in this case for cancer. And I think that independence from the other, for-profit interest, which I think it's valid too, but in our case, we don't need to have that pressure, and you have that independence. I think that's what is bringing these solutions that are very unique at Hadassah. And I think, my last question, and I've been trying to also include all the different questions that people have written in the chat, is you know, we have understood already, and we all know, I think, that Hadassah has a very unique edge in the field of cancer, and is very unique right now. But, you know, as I was saying, you know, that you were given the freedom to dream. And, you know, dreaming it's at the DNA of Hadassah. It was Henrietta's soul more than 100 years ago, and continued to be for more than 100 years. And through these 100 years, you know, our leading drive is the ability to dream and envision, you know, where we're heading. So if we were to dream that Hadassah in 10 years from now would be among the 5 top cancer centers in the world, if not the #1. Do you see how we could get there and how we can be that center from Jerusalem, from Israel, from Hadassah? You have all your mics open, Michal, Polina, and Aron. Challenging question, but you know, that's my role.
Jorge, you know, it's a lot. It's a lot about resources. It's resources. We talked a lot about the spirit, the motivation, the meditation, the intelligence, but all of these need to be realized via resources, I must say.
We have the human resources. You know, when I look at you, and you are 3 of the many more, you know, experts, researchers, doctors, you know, dreamers that we have working on this, I see not only you as human resources, but I also look at you and see you as magnets for young doctors, residents, fellows, people who want to be part of something greater than the usual work in any hospital or in any medical center or even in any university. They want to really be in that place that will find the thing that will make a transformative difference in a disease called cancer. And I definitely see that. So, you know, of course there are other resources, but when I look at you, I'm definitely optimistic that we can get there. Polina, and then Aron will let you give the closing remark on this. Polina?
You know, you spoke about Henrietta Salt, and I really like this sentence of Henrietta Salt. Dream the great dreams and do practical steps to bring them to reality. So I am absolutely sure that we have, you know, all of us, we have a great dreams, but we have to do practical steps. And I'm absolutely sure that we will be able to do these practical steps. You know, probably Aron could speak more about the dream for the new comprehensive cancer center. And I can speak about the new GMP facility, you know, the facility where we will be able to produce these genetically modified lymphocytes, genetically modified our own cells to bring them to our patients. Because as you told, only few centers in the world, they have these centers and they have these facilities. And we really hope that we'll be one of them. So we have many, many great dreams. And I see that also we are able to do a practical steps.
Great.
So I would like to say that I think that what's going to make Hadassah great in 10 years, it's already great, obviously, is the fact that we already have great peoples in many fields. We want our people to excel in all the fields they can. We want them to have the capability to do whatever they want. We want the patients to get enough attentions for the doctor, and we want the doctors to be capable of personalizing the medicine in each and every case in order to offer the patients, obviously, the most unique and the most modern treatment that we can. All this will be combined together in 10 years in Hadassah. Bezrat Hashem.
Thank you so much. I think this has been an incredible session. I feel very privileged for being here and not just listening to you, but being inspired. For those of us who whose life is dedicated and devoted to Hadassah. Listening to your perspective of where we are heading is an inspiration and gives us the strength that we need to keep going and to keep remembering why are we doing this in the first place. So we really want to thank you. I think you all deserve a big applause for the work you do. We will open the mics in a second. We are going to have the closing event of the Hadassah International Summer Summit next week. You will all receive the invitation so that you can join. Is the Power of Genetics, presented by Professor Orly El-Pelek, another field where Hadassah excels. She will be presenting a very interesting case and the work that she's been doing for the last several months, even during COVID times, doing genetic screening for young members and young couples of the Mexican Jewish community, and some preliminary results. And I think that's going to be also a fascinating session. I want I want to thank Professor Popovtzer, Professor Stepensky, and Professor Michal Lotem, my dear friend, our supporters, friends, leaders, and participants in the session. And together we live today during this pandemic, and together we will live through generations to come. Thank you so much.